If you are doing business with your partner, it can bring a lot of interesting challenges. And so my guest today, I'm so excited to have her here because one of the things that she specializes in talking about and coaching her clients in is how you do business with your partner. And she has businesses with her partner. And so she's also a client. And so she's going to be taking you through an inside look at some of the transformations that she's made and how that's affected her relationship as well. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm your host, Alicia St. Germain, and I'm here with Amanda Rockrohr, who is a specialist in helping people navigate doing business as a couple. And if you are new here, I want to welcome you. I'm so excited to have you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button. And you can check out more information on coaching with the Conscious Edge at consciousedge.com if you are looking for someone who can help you get out of your own way so that you can reach your big, juicy goals. Amanda, so tell us, how did you end up coaching people on doing business as a couple?
It all started, honestly, through real estate. So my husband and I, during COVID 2020, realized that we had all our eggs in one basket. And my husband's an entrepreneur, so his bar had to close down. And at that time, I was working at W-2, and it really put us in a tight spot. And we realized we need to start thinking about our future. And for some reason, real estate was the path. But it gave us a common vision and a common goal to start working together. And so we started investing in real estate. So we started buying rental properties and started fixing them up and then just getting them going. And we realized we loved working together. And so at that point, we started looking for businesses to buy. We looked at breweries, we looked at self-storage, we looked at all sorts of businesses, but could not find anything that we could buy. And along that way, so fast forward 4 years later, working together through our real estate and trying to find a business together, we were like, well, what if we started a business together where we're helping couples? Because at that point, we were running meetups already, just more for fun, to meet other couples who were investing in real estate together. And at the same time, we were finding this community of couples who were thinking and dreaming bigger, and they needed a lot of support in terms of talking, getting on the same page. How do they separate their roles? We started seeing gaps because we were experiencing those same things. But since I used to work at a university, I built a lot of systems and processes. So I was like, there's so much easier ways to fix this in our own life. So I started doing that in our own personal relationship and started helping other couples just more for fun. And we're like, well, what if we created resources to support couples who are in business together? And so that birthed doing business as a couple. And so we coach couples who are doing business together and just figuring out how to balance life and also their business. But really in the forefront, we prioritize our relationship over the business. And so that's what we really push our clients to really think about, is like, how do you keep the love alive while still building something that's really important to you?
Yeah. So what are some of the bumps and bruises that you have gone through and learned from in doing business as a couple?
I guess the first one that pops into my head, there's like dropping the ego because you think you know everything until you start working with, especially your partner who, you're used to, I don't know, some of that conflict already just naturally in your relationship. But when you're coming into business together, you really start to see those different strengths and weaknesses show up in different ways. And typically you would write them off as, oh, well, Dan's asking, this is my husband's name. Dan, he asks us so many questions, just feels like he's poking holes at my ideas. But really, once you start thinking on the business side, you're like, that's actually good for you, because now he's asking more questions. It's getting you to think, and it's making us make better decisions. But in a regular relationship, I would just write it off as like Dan just asking a lot of questions. But when I can reframe it in a way that's more about business, oh, that's actually helpful because I don't do that. And so I think there's a little bit of that personality conflict that comes about, and you have to learn to navigate it. And the things that you're probably most annoyed about your partner is probably their strengths in the business. And getting to realize that is a long journey a little bit. And it's a lot of reminding yourself. So that's one of them.
Okay. So the things that annoy you about your spouse,
Yes.
when they bring it to business, it's probably one of their strengths, right? So I know a lot of times when you talk about questions, a lot of people, when someone asks a lot of questions, they see it as objections, or it can land on a person as objections. And when we're talking about being really critically thinking about a business or making an investment, sometimes those questions can really have value. So if we cannot be triggered by it and manage our own emotions around it, right? So it has value is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's not about, like, I think I was taking it personally, like, oh, it's about me. My ideas are not worth it to him. But it's really him just trying to understand and also help me think to explain it so that we can get to a better solution. So I think that's the part about dropping the ego a little bit. It's not about you at times.
It's not about you, the ego. Yeah.
That's hard.
So how do you delineate the roles, and how do you stay in your lane?
So we actually have a whole like activity that we do that honestly is started from my experience working in. So I used to work in higher education. So I worked with a lot of college student adult development and learning. And so we did a lot of hands-on activities. And so I took this kind of framework of sticky notes and kind of brainstorming and turned it into an activity that helps us clarify our roles. And so really we do like a big brain dump of, well, first we start off like understanding each other's strengths and our weaknesses and really thinking about it in terms of business in our life too. And then we start listing out all the different things in our business, like what does it make to function our business? And then we kind of start placing it in the people within one of us that makes the most sense within our strengths, within our energy, and if we like it or if we don't. And we just kind of do that every single year, because every single year we kind of change and task and roles in our business shift. And then also we kind of look at it as a holistic approach, because we look at our business, but we look at our lives as well. And then at the same time, we have other things going on as well. So my husband has a small dive bar that he runs with his sister. And so that dynamic plays into our relationship as well. And so he's balancing that while also some of the real estate, and then doing business as a couple, and then our lives. And then at the same time, I'm doing a little bit of the real estate. I'm majority of our life. And then we're trying to buy another bar, and we're also still trying to grow our portfolio. So how do you divide and create those lanes when there's so many different things that are going on? And so we try to take a holistic approach as well when it comes to dividing the roles.
You take a retreat with your husband, don't you?
Every single year.
So tell me a little bit about don't tell me all the things that happen on that retreat, but tell me about the business side of that retreat
first. It's so funny because it started off very small, because my husband is not like a big retreat person. He doesn't come from that background of like higher education where we're constantly doing retreats. And so I had to start small, and it was a simple day at home where we just like talked about our goals and mapped things out. And then we moved to a hotel room where we like spent the night and we really focused on our goals and went to dinner. And then the next year was like a night and a half, and we went somewhere about an hour away. And now this year we're actually headed to Mexico for a day. So we're doing a trip, but then we're attacking a day and a half of goal setting. But we've really like honed in on what that experience looks like, and we make it work in a day and a half. So we're really brainstorming and talking about last year's goals, what went well. Our main goal is connection again, is like dreaming and visioning together, getting on the same page. I think that's one of the biggest things we see couples really struggle with, is staying on the same page, because things are shifting all the time. And so it's just a good checkpoint to get back on the same page. And then we always do an activity that reflects on the last year, and then also kind of takes us into the next year. So for example, one of the years we wrote letters to ourselves. Actually, we wrote letters to the other person, because then again, we can get the perspective of the other person of what do you think happened? What are you proud of for that person? And then the next year we'll read it and see where that person's mindset was, but also for that person. Another year we did videos to our future selves. So this year I have a different activity planned for us. I try to switch it up every single year to kind of keep it different for us. And then we try to set goals within our relationship, our business, and just like an area where we really want to focus on. So if it's like our finances or if it's our health, we'll pick 3 things. So business for sure, relationship, and then something that is something that you want to focus on. So this past year was finance for us.
Yeah. And you like crushed your goals midway through, right?
Yeah, that was so cool to see.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So you spent the last year coaching with me in the group program that I have. And I wanted to ask you really, how has understanding what big assumptions, because a lot of the things up until, I know that you're into personal development and things like that, but a lot of what I hear is like tactical things that you do to do business as a couple. And I know that you're also really devoted to personal growth. So I imagine all through that as well, you've done personal development. But what has this last year been like for you? And how has that affected how you see now doing business as a couple?
I think you're right. Like, I think since starting real estate, since I didn't know anything, I've always focused on strategy. Like, how do you buy like a multifamily? How do you buy a small multifamily? Like, how do you buy self-storage? It's just very strategy focused. And joining your program, it really made the shift for mindset, which I felt like I was doing some work around that, but it was really more self-taught, like reading books, journaling, but never had a coach that would essentially help me work through my mindset. And I think that was really good for me, especially in this last like 2 years, I would say. Because like we started investing in real estate and it felt easy because like you read a book and then you just did what it told you. And then at a certain point, there's something that happens in your mind and you're just like, I cannot understand why I can't make the next move. Like I joined a self-storage program. I joined this program, like a strategy focused program. And yet I still can't pull the trigger on what to do. I think that's why we struggled with when I was telling you about buying a business. We were like trying to look at self-storage or trying to buy a brewery. Like none of those things were working out because I think the universe or my mind needed a little bit more time to break down what was really going on inside.
So it's like you had hit your upper limit. What worked to get you to that point when you start to hit that upper limit and it seems like you can't break past that plateau? Yeah. It's like, whoa, okay, now where have I hit the upper limit of my mind and my capacity? Yeah. I remember 2 years ago, you came to a workshop that I did from a summit. And so the workshop happened after the summit and participants who had the opportunity to purchase and come into the summit as part of the package. And so you were there. And do you remember what it was like going through that initial workshop?
I do, because it was impactful enough for me to like, I wanted more. And it kind of unlocked something in my mind, like, oh, this is actually what I need more of. And because also I was kind of feeling burnt out too. It was like this combination of burnt out. I don't know what my next step is. I thought if I just worked harder and learned more, I would just jump over the barrier. And it wasn't working. And so I think that going through that workshop, it unlocked a like, oh, I still have a lot more mindset stuff to work on. And it has to do inside. Like, I feel like if I don't do the work internally, it doesn't matter what business or whatever I do with my husband, we're gonna run into the same situation. And so going through that workshop really helped me start kind of like backing off on trying to do strategy and slowing down and doing a lot more journaling and internal work. I started doing breath work. I started like going to therapy. I started so many internal work.
What did you discover in that workshop that was really the thing that was getting in the way?
My biggest thing was my voice. And I think it's still something that I'm working on, was just finding confidence in the decisions that I was making.
So you were being really indecisive about everything. You were being really indecisive. And so you had this big assumption around if you don't do it perfectly or you make any mistakes, then it meant that you weren't smart.
Yes.
And so I talk about big assumptions all the time on this podcast, right? But if you are new and you have not heard me say the word big assumption before, this is what your brain unconsciously makes up about you and the way that you exist in the world and the way the world works. And it drives your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So you had this big assumption that if you make a mistake, then it means you're not smart. And so you just didn't make any decisions.
Yep.
Didn't buy any businesses. Nothing worked out. Like nothing was right.
Yep.
Right. Probably because you couldn't make a decision on something as part of it.
Yep.
And so if you don't make a decision, then you can't make a mistake, which means you're smart.
Yes. And I would
this whole thing that your brain wires up. Go ahead.
And I would also just put the decision in other people. So I was never to blame. So my husband was a main default to that. And so I'd always push the big decisions to him. Or other people in my group, I was running a meetup. So I would just what do you think? I was constantly asking for that external validation to feel good about any decision that I was making. And so that played a factor too. So I couldn't gain any confidence in making any decisions because I just wasn't making any or was passing it off.
So then you decided to come work with me and we went through and started digging in. What was the first breakthrough that you remember happening for you in this process?
The first breakthrough was the activity where you had us thinking back to our younger selves and small moments, not even the big moments. And I think reflecting and thinking about where some of this stuff was coming, or maybe not even where, I don't even think I knew exactly what was going on. It was just, I was just thinking back to past memories. I think 6th grade and below. Is that what you had us?
Yeah. So typically we call it the biography of the big assumption. So where did this thing get created in your mind? And so we went back into this created this biography, and I have you think about your formative years, 16 and under. What are the headlines? What are the main headlines that kind of have maybe a little bit of a negative sort of feeling about it, or maybe one of those hard feelings, you feel angry, or it was sad, or had some kind of feeling to it that was impressionable for you. And they can be the littlest things.
Yes.
Right? Not necessarily anything that specifically was traumatic. It was just moments in time that you remember. And then we look at what you were thinking at that time, what you were feeling at that time, and how could that possibly have informed you to create this big assumption?
Yes.
So you did that.
Yeah, I did that activity. And those were, I think, the first breakthrough that was starting to unravel why this was all happening, or why I was thinking certain things, and why, because so for example, one little memory that I had was, I had so many, but the main one was I was writing in 6th grade on a big, large poster board, and I had misspelled a word. And some senior came by and was like, "Oh, freshman, she doesn't even know how to spell the word Thursday or Wednesday." I can't remember exactly. And it just left something in me that was oh, if I make a mistake, someone's going to call me out and I'm going to feel embarrassed. I'm going to feel very little. So I should never make a mistake in front of anybody. I shouldn't try anything in front of anybody. And so that little memory is just so small that you don't realize how now I'm 34 and I write on a whiteboard and I'm sweating. Why am I sweating so hard? It's because I have eyeballs watching me and I feel like that 6th grader again, who's going to mess up.
Yeah. Your body knows. I feel the same way. I am 100% fine to stand in front of an audience and speak. If I am sitting in the audience and I have to raise my hand, my heart pounds, because I had a similar experience in grade school, raising my hand, asking a question. And then some girls made fun of me on the bus ride home about the question that I asked. And so even today, I still am very aware. My body is still very aware of that experience, even though consciously I've done a lot to work through some of those things. You also, if I remember, there was like something with writing and a teacher told you should know better.
Yes, there was another, I was like, right, again, maybe sixth grade. We were supposed to like free write something and I used the wrong there. And my teacher, like, it wasn't even my teacher. I think it was a sub, was walking through and then she like looked over and then she's like, that's the wrong there. You should know better. And so that was like another moment where I was like, ooh, I didn't like that feeling.
And how did that then start to manifest in today's world? Like, what types of things were you not just not making a decision, but when we moved into this phase of coaching where we call it the testing phase, where it's like, how do we break apart the fact that your brain has taken two independent thoughts, making a mistake and not being smart, and then put them together and ran it like a computer program, if then, right? And so how did that manifest in like something that you ended up testing and you didn't realize?
So one of the things I started doing, for doing business as a couple, we wanted to start writing weekly emails. And I did what I normally would do. I handed it off to Dan. I was like, your marketing, it makes the most sense for you to write the emails. You should do it. He's not the best at writing emails because he just doesn't like it. And he doesn't read a lot of emails. So it didn't really make sense. And I felt this like kind of internal tug was like, ooh, I think I'm supposed to be writing these emails. I don't want to.
And I don't like the emails he's writing. And
and I'm like, but well, and yeah, I don't like the emails he was writing. And I could tell like he wasn't getting consistent enough. So he like hated it. So, but he was trying. And so I was like, okay, I guess I will have to just do this. And so this was like the perfect time, or this was my first test that I was going to do. So I was like, okay, I'm going to write emails every week, which is so terrifying to me because all the eyeballs that are watching it, it's like feels permanent because it's on email. Someone can reply and just say, this sucks. Like it's so easy for them just to reply back. And so kind of going back a little bit more, but I think that little memory also I went to grad school and I remember I had to like write emails and I had to write essays and it would just be the hardest thing for me. And I remember just getting in trouble from my like supervisors about my emails not being professional enough or my writing wasn't up to the level. And so I just got told over and over again, I was not a good writer. Or maybe I told myself that, but it was getting confirmed by some of the things that
you did. The feedback you were getting formed an opinion that you were not a good writer. Yeah.
Exactly.
From the feedback, your brain. So that starts to run in the background, right? Unconsciously. That's the same thing for people who say like, I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good at writing. Like those are all beliefs that are ingrained in you and hold you back.
Yeah. That's kind of why when Dan was taking over the writing, I was like, well, I'm not a good writer, so I shouldn't be the one writing these emails. And so we made it a test to write an email every week. Mm-hmm. And so I started writing. And kind of one more thing to go back, I actually really loved writing when I was younger. I enjoyed journaling. I enjoyed processing whatever I was going through. And so it was fun at a certain point. And then when I was not good at it, I was told that it wasn't fun. So I think that perfectionism started forming really, really young. And so we started doing the emails and every week I would sit down and write the email. It was really hard in the beginning. I think I even like try to write them a couple weeks out to try to get ahead of myself so that I would have enough time to edit them. It was really exhausting. And then I don't know what week it was, but it was an email about taxes and how my husband and I had this huge tax bill that just like surprised us, which it shouldn't have surprised us, but it did. And I wrote like a really vulnerable email about it, like how much we owed and what we did and kind of owning up to the mistake that we made. And I got a reply from someone and they're like, thank you so much or like for writing this email. Like, this is really relatable or like, this is really helpful. And I was like, whoa, that was weird. And then I got another email that just, it was like, that was a really good email. Like just things started confirming the opposite of what I was used to. And that was so good for my soul.
Yeah.
because it started rewriting that, oh, I'm not that bad of a writer. And I still made mistakes in those emails. Like I forgot to attach links. I put the wrong date. I probably didn't use it right there at some point.
Oh, I can guarantee, I tell everyone, if you get emails from me, just know the wrong there will be used. The grammar stuff is not my strength. It never has been. And as long as you read typo, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the unraveling of I was a bad writer started to happen, and I just kept getting more and the more I wrote, obviously, the better I was getting at writing.
Yeah.
And so now it's been, I don't even know how long.
I think you've been writing at least 8 months.
Yeah. Every single week, there's a new email that goes out. And I don't have to write them as far out because I do like writing them in real time of what is happening in our lives. So it's the most relevant. And it feels a lot easier. It doesn't feel like a panic of, oh, I don't know if I'm going to write it right. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but it's coming more from the heart. And I think I'm enjoying it more.
Is it faster?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So just to explain, so in the testing phase, it's not just about doing the activity. And that's one of the other pieces people worry about, like how much time do I need to invest in the coaching versus I'm so busy already in my life. And you're a mom of 2. You have several businesses basically that you are running and growing a portfolio and doing so many different things. But the coaching, you have some planning. You have some sessions you have to come to, but a lot of it is actually taking action in your real life to do the things you need to do. So that's one of the things I really love from a time perspective is it doesn't really take that much time. It's the things you're already doing anyways. You're just slowing them down enough to be intentional about what you want to learn from the thing and then reflecting on what you learned.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like also at some point, I was like, okay, if I make a mistake, if I forget to attach a link, I'll just rewrite everyone and just say like, hey, sorry, oops, like I forgot the link. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
But I know like a year ago, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I forgot to attach the link. That's such like a dumb move.
Yeah,
like I would have this self-negative talk. And it doesn't happen anymore. And it's just kind of weird that rewiring that happens slowly as I'm gaining more confidence.
Yeah. So what do you think was your biggest breakthrough then through this that was your first kind of breakthrough. What do you think has been your biggest breakthrough in this process? Because I know that it really has you, as you were kind of finishing up your coaching time with me, you shared how this really has transformed your relationship with your husband.
Yeah. So this one was probably the most recent, but it feels like the most like just bang for your buck in a way. It's just like, it feels like it's changed our lives so much. But one of the tests was, so I work with my husband and we create content together. And every week we have this like time block where we meet and we film content. We're supposed to each bring our own ideas. And then but I'm the main person who gives the okay, but ultimately like we work together to get it done. And so it felt like every single week he would bring these ideas that I was confused about. I was like, I don't understand where you're going with this. Like, how does this fit our pillars? Like I was asking him a lot of questions of like how it fits. And I can always see in his face like this disappointment and also just like not having fun. And we would get in these little arguments before we start filming because he would feel like he had to get defensive. And I was reframing it in a way, well, it was like, well, I'm confused. Can you just explain it to me so that I can get on board? And then in one of our coaching sessions with you, you're like, well, this is actually something that is a thing where I think you called it damseling.
Yeah. And that's not my term. That's a term I learned from Lee C. Cordell, she's a trauma-informed coach. But essentially, I think you were running this test and it was about perfectionism and breaking down perfectionism and really saying, we're going to let Dan do what he does for the bar the way he wants to do it, whether it's right or wrong. And can you actually let him do that? Like let him be on his own journey and not make it a thing.
Yeah.
And so I think you came back and you were reporting on kind of how it was going. You weren't
Yeah.
fully through the testing.
No.
And I said, so I think you're in your big assumption when you say, I don't understand, because in trauma responses, like just not big T trauma, but just fight, flight, fawn, freeze. And when we damsel, I don't understand, just help me understand, this is confusing. Essentially, you're in a trauma response to get someone to do what you want them to do. And I called you out on it.
Yep.
And I remember you took it, it hurt, and you were so responsible with the fact that it hurt. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, wow, I did not see that happening.
Yeah.
So what did you do with that information?
It really felt like you like lifted a mirror and you're like, please look at yourself and take responsibility for actually what you're doing. And so that clicked for me. And I was like, oh, I have so much of the control in this situation. This whole time I was putting on blame on Dan for confusing me, and he needed to explain himself so that I can get on board. But really it was, I didn't want to own my decision, which was like, I didn't really love the idea and like own my opinion about it and just really be truthful about it. And then say, can we work together? Instead, I was like, do all the work for me and then I can get on board. And if it doesn't work out, then it wasn't my fault. It's your fault. So I get to stay perfect. And once I realized that, a part of me was like, I don't really want to tell Dan. Because I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to feel like I knew it. And I know he would never like rub it in my face or anything, but I kind of like felt embarrassed too, having to face him and share the information. But I decided to share in the middle of the test what I learned. And I was like, hey, my coach brought this up. And I feel like I wanted to tell you because one, you're my partner, but also just kind of the development that I'm making for it. And he felt relieved. Like I can tell from his face that he's like, oh my gosh, now she fully understands what's happening. And I don't even know if both of us could really understand what was happening. But once I started to take ownership of it, it honestly started making our sessions for content creation a lot lighter. Even if he knew I was going to say, like, I don't really love that idea, because I wouldn't say like, I like say it in a mean way, but at least he knows that I'm owning what I'm saying and not trying to like hide it and manipulate it in a way to make him have to like prove himself. And so that just it just like unlocked another level of our communication in our relationship. And since then, I don't think we have fought about content at all.
Really?
Yeah. Do we disagree and not always love the idea? Yeah. But we don't fight about what that feeling was, which was like the hardest part of content creating.
And what's really cool, it has been really cool to watch that, is that you started creating content, and I've noticed your content is really getting some traction now. First of all, people want to know, okay, where's this content at? So where is this content so they can go check you out?
Okay, so we're mainly on Instagram, which is at Doing Business as a Couple, where Dan and I, our pages together. And then we have separate pages that kind of connect, but don't, in terms of doing business as a couple. But you can find my Instagram at Amanda Rockrohr. And then we also started going onto YouTube because we want to do longer form content. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we could do longer form content until we worked through that.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was a step that we really needed to take and learn. And so that is our next phase of our content creating.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating because very often someone will think the other person is the problem, and everybody has their own part. I think that's the big thing for people to realize is everybody has their own part. And so everybody has to own their own part in what is happening. And so for you, really being responsible for what your part was and what you were doing to manipulate. And this is the hardest part of, because it really falls into like a fawning response. Fawning is also your people pleasing, all of those things that are overtly nice are some of the most manipulative, right? Because when someone is like fighting, you're very clear, like this person is fighting and it feels it's in your face, you know, it's there. And with people pleasing and the damseling, we called it, it's overtly manipulative. And I remember learning that from Dr. Lee. And when I realized people pleasing was manipulation in like sheep's clothing, I was like, oh, that feels awful.
Yes.
And when I share that now with my clients, it's such a like wake up call for people to realize that that's really what is happening and you're not doing it from a malicious place. You're doing it from self-protection. You're doing it from a big assumption that says, if we make a mistake, and that was one of the last things you had said was like, I was putting my big assumption about making mistakes on everybody in my family.
Yeah.
And I think when you realized that, it helped you a lot to really have the motivation to like really dig in and work on this.
Yeah. I think a part of owning like what I was doing too was a part of building my confidence in like finding my voice in a way. Cause I was like, oh, I can control this and it's my own doing. Gave me so much power back in a weird way. Even if I wasn't doing something good, it was accepting my decision. Like, I think you always say like, make a decision and make it like
make it right.
The right decision.
Yeah. Make a decision and make it right. It's not something that's mine, but it's something that I have picked up along the way in the years, and make a decision and make it right. Because there isn't a right decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me. And that's a part of entrepreneurship is like, you're going to make decisions and you're going to make the wrong one. But if you learn something, then you're going to actually continue moving forward. And I think that's the thing that was stopping me from making another business move, buying another rental property. It's because I got scared of making the wrong decision, especially looking back at some of the deals that we made. Some of them weren't perfect. Some of them are really great, but I was still afraid of making some of the wrong ones again, now that we know more.
Yeah.
And so that was impacting us to move to the next step in whatever we were doing.
So now that you've had these breakthroughs, you're like communicating better with your husband, you have a voice, you're owning your opinion. And so where has that brought you to today?
So do you want me to talk about the bar situation?
If you want to, I think that's a great way like to kind of demonstrate the whole transformation.
Yeah, coming together. So I mentioned earlier, my husband owns a dive bar with his sister, and it's always been their thing. Like I came into the relationship, it was his goal to buy it. And so it kind of supported him. And we started doing goal setting and we started realizing, oh, we want more than just one. But me being like a bigger picture, a visionary, I was like, well, let's think big picture here. Like, how does that fit in our lifestyle? Do we really want just one more? Or do we want like an ecosystem that's going to like create a certain lifestyle for us? And I've been always consulting on the side. That's what I called it. And just like supporting him. And my sister-in-law's husband kind of brought up the idea he wanted to be a partner. And that kind of unlocked something in my brain. And it was like, oh, you could be a partner too. But I was kind of afraid to own that decision that I did. Or like, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to. I wanted to make sure that I really thought about it instead of just have this emotion about it and say like, oh, I want part of it just because.
Well, the emotion, yeah, because I remember you saying the emotion that you initially felt was like, I feel left out. And you were like kind of back at you, like you got hooked in something we call in big assumptions. You can get hooked back into your big assumptions. So even though you've done all this work, you've done it in different contexts. As you go to a new level, it's really easy for an old big assumption that you don't really hold as true anymore in certain areas of your life. It'll hook you back in. So you got a little hooked back in and went back into a little bit of perfectionism and worrying about making a mistake. Felt like maybe Dan wasn't honoring like an agreement that you had earlier in the process. And so we worked to help you unhook from that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It like came in the right time because you're like, does anybody need coaching today? I was like, I don't know if I do, but this just didn't land right. I'm so glad I said something because it did help me kind of learn, okay, what do I do next in order to really know what my decision is? How do I talk to Dan about this when I'm still unsure and I just want more information to make a better decision for our whole family? And so that led to a larger conversation with Dan and I. And come to find, he was like, I would have loved for you to be a partner. Like, this actually works out so much better, but I just kind of operated on the idea of what we have always done. And you didn't really say anything. So I didn't know, I didn't want to push it. And I was like, well, I didn't really know either. And so we kind of just worked through the conversation and the opportunity to become the fourth partner. So it'd be my husband and I, and then his sister and her husband, which is like the doing business as a couple galore.
Yeah. Evolving, the evolution
yes.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And that's super exciting. I spent a lot of time just journaling and trying to figure out what my own personal thoughts were so that I could feel really good in the decision. And a lot of fear of, obviously the big assumption came up of, well, what if I'm don't know enough? Maybe I shouldn't be making decisions and helping them. Maybe I should stay on the sidelines, and having to work through that to say, no, I know what I can bring. I know we'll make decisions together, and they might be wrong and they might be right, but we're going to have to sit in those decisions and work through it together. And that's going to make us all better business owners, but like a family. Because that was one thing I was afraid of. I was like, okay, I am used to working with Dan, so I know what it's like for us to kind of work through that. But now I have my sister-in-law and her husband, which they're very different from me, which is great. But I was a little afraid of, how do I navigate that with that relationship with them now that we're business partners?
So do you feel like you now have tools and equipment going forward that will help you navigate that next level?
Oh yeah. I feel like that decision would have probably taken me a month to make. I would have been like, I can't talk to Dan yet. Oh no, I'll just keep writing. No, I'll just sit there in resentment until I explode. And then he'll be like, what's wrong? I'm like, I feel left out. I can see what I could have probably done. But the way that I was able to approach it was definitely from the coaching, for sure. Like you and having all the other women to talk through those things and be better positioned to have a conversation with him. It wouldn't have worked out any better.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey so vulnerably with everyone listening. I can't tell you what a difference it makes. I can sit here and talk about what I do. I am so passionate about it. I personally think everyone should do this work, because when you can really understand yourself and be responsible and understand who you are in the world and what you unconsciously believe affects other people in your life, I just think that would raise humanity exponentially. But to have you come here and just really share what it was really like for you, what you learned from it, and how it transformed you, it's such a gift to someone out there who's questioning and thinking about it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Alicia. Like I said, it has been a healing experience for me. And I've heard healing is good business. And I feel like my business is going to do so much better now that I'm in a better spot. And I know it's going to keep coming up, but at least I'm a lot more aware of it, which I was not.
Yeah. And you have all the tools, the exercises and everything to, when you hit another plateau, and you will, you have the tools and exercises to go back through. And if you just follow the process of immunity to change, that's the great thing about immunity to change, is it's a process that you've learned. And it's designed that you are not reliant permanently on a coach to only be making progress. When you're in coaching, you have the tools to coach yourself. And I think that that's one of the things that's so beautiful about the process. So any final words, Amanda? Just one more time, where do people find you on Instagram?
Okay. At Doing Business as a Couple, or my own personal page at Amanda Rockrohr.
Okay. Amazing. And do you have a website or anything you want people to check out?
Yeah, we do have a stand store. Hopefully it's in the notes, but that will take you to all the free resources that we actually talked about: the goal setting, the role clarity. And then we do a thing called marriage meetings that we didn't get to talk about, but all those resources are free.
Amazing. All right. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes for everyone. And if they are where should they go to visit you in real life? If they are in town, they can come to Amazing Dive Bar.
Yes, if you are in Boise, Idaho, you got to come check out the Cactus Bar. We would love to have you there.
Amazing. Any final words?
Just thank you so much, Alicia.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. With all of that being said, I'm sending you so much love. And if Jonathan were here, he would say, be well. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.